It doesn't matter where we play. It doesn't matter who plays for us. It doesn't matter who we play against. All Arsenal do is win football matches. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. And not only that, we respected a deep football heritage, a deep footballing tradition yesterday as we record this, in that Arsenal won 3-0 and then won on penalties. You know, as you do. I guess technically that could happen in the second leg of a Champions League knockout round, which, you know, maybe we will be experiencing next season. I guess it could happen in the knockout round of a Europa League, but I can't really envision us having been down 3-0 in the first leg of a Europa League tie, he says, inviting doom and despair. But yeah, I mean, all Arsenal do is win. Doesn't matter who plays. Doesn't matter if the second half is played by people, I'll admit I've never heard of, who were born like well into my 30s. But, you know, it's all good. Arsenal just win football matches. I don't know what we were worried about. Eddie Nketiah scored. So Gabriel Jesus, who? Doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't ring a bell, mate. You know? Losing his place. He's been Wally pipped. Look it up. Okay. Here to discuss that, some injury issues, and a pretty funny penalty shootout, including a phenomenal final penalty of the shootout, is Paul. You can find him on Twitter. Pause my pants. I'll pause.
Woohoo!
Woohoo, indeed. Look, if you are desperate for your Clive fix, Clive and I did a podcast titled Solving Problems in January, a deep dive on realistically where we are from a talent standpoint, talent perspective, what we need to do to bridge the gap, not just from the Jesus injury, but also just where we were from a talent perspective before the Jesus injury and how we handle it. That's over on the Patreon side, as well as some scouting videos and other bits and bobs and pieces and things and nuts and bolts and episodes and links and merriment, SCAC, which is Stats Guy and a Civilian, which is Paul's wonderful sort of branch of content that we do with Scott, and you're going to love it. So that's all there. All right. That's what we call vamping. I don't know why I'm vamping. As we record, by the way, Croatia and Brazil are playing. So obviously if Gabriel Martinelli's second half hat trick wins it for Brazil, we will try to update you as that happens. But Paul, let's start with the Arsenal victory. And I guess the best way I could describe this game at a very high level, at least in the first half, Arsenal looked like Arsenal and Lyon looked like shit. That's basically it. We saw a very familiar sight. Alexander Lacazette at about 40 minutes, absolutely blowing his ass trying to run around. Well, I mean, the thing that I think is the headline for me, if we want to do this sort of in the form of our instant reaction over on the Patreon side, the headline is Arsenal looked like Arsenal. That's what I got.
Yeah, no, that was the biggest takeaway for me too. We replaced players with other players, and those players, like you can quibble about whether everybody was in top form, as good as the player they replaced. It was absolutely crystal clear what everybody's role was. You know, Sambi was playing the Xhaka role in a sense, just like Xhaka does. It wasn't like he wasn't a second pivot. He wasn't a one of three midfielders with Odegaard and El Neni played Partey. Odegaard amazingly played Odegaard, and Sambi played Xhaka. Jesus wasn't there. Eddie played Jesus' role in very much the Jesus way. Again, people's mileage may vary on whether they thought he did as good as a job, but it was absolutely crystal clear what the jobs were, what they were doing, how they played. That was the big take. The second big takeaway for me was even the under 20, even the academy kids played the same football. That was quite stark for me. I mean, of course they play in the same philosophy and the same this and the same that. It's funny you said about not knowing the names of the guys in the second half and the kids. I know you're being slightly tongue-in-cheek. What was particularly impressive was the commentators for this game didn't know the guys in the first half. We had, and this didn't. I asked you. I was a little disappointed in your professionalism offline, Elliot, when I asked you if you wanted to rewatch the game because I had a recording of it, and you said that would not be required for the level of analysis so you plan to give it. But I needed it because I spent the first time round mostly obsessed by how bad these commentators were. They came up with Nikita Odegaard, both of them, all the way through the game. Lukoga, Ryan Nelson, and Marcarinos. And I'm not making fun of people who culturally, would we know names from a different part. These were English people, the two commentators. Um, it was super sport, and they were, I'm going to do to them what they did to us. It was Ayan Burstow and Am I Gillingham.
Yeah, I mean, and look, you could pronounce their names however you want. They still played like the guys we know.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the important thing. By the way, I'm picking up a good amount of plosive from you on the mic. So if you want to, like the that kind of stuff. So if you just want to stay back, yeah, exactly.
Okay, we should be good now.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh my God. And I already get grief about mouth noise off Clive, so I'm sure all the people who've gotten in touch about that are going to love it.
I know you can hear the ocean in Clive's mouth.
Yuck.
Fish, little fish swimming around.
Yeah, but that voice, I mean, it makes up for it. Look, here's how funny it is. Poor Ethan Nwaneri, who we will be aware of as Arsenal fans, if you go to Google and you Google this game and you go to lineups and you look at the subs bench, number 83 has a green arrow to show that he came on and no name. I mean, you know how sometimes they'll show the lineups and there'll be like a face picture of the player, but some players won't have a face picture. They don't even have his name written in text. There is no name next to number 83, just a green arrow showing he came on. Poor Nwaneri, like even Google doesn't know his name, but you better remember the name because he is a talented player at a very young age. But so a couple of things. Let's talk about the goals. You get a goal out of Gabriel, and I think, look, it's pretty simple. If we lose one Gabby, the other Gabbies just have to score the goals he would have. We have 3 Gabbies. You can certainly afford to lose one, and one of the Gabbies scored. And it's good to see us scoring from a set piece. Granted, it was horrifically defended, just like everything Lyon did in this game. But set pieces have been a point of strength for us this season. It's nice to see us continuing that. But the one that was fun, obviously, the Eddie Nketiah goal is a brilliant, really fast-paced counterattack. And it's a lovely cross from Vieira, pinpoint slid across the box. But Paul, like Lyon just decided the left side of the pitch is lava, their left defensive side. Like there was no one. I mean, there wasn't a player within 45 yards of Vieira just standing at the halfway line. So, I mean, how do you take that goal? It's great to see Eddie scoring. It's a lovely little finish, just a very calm and composed, pass it into the opposite side of the net. Cool as you like. Lovely slid ball through from Vieira. But I mean, again, no defending whatsoever.
Yeah. I think we scored 3 great goals with the proviso that Lyon were absolutely shite on all 3 of them. You can play, this is, me. Preseason is the real season.
But this is mid-preseason.
Yeah.
What's the math on that?
But you could tell the difference between a preseason and this. Like, we were pretty sharp. Now, we had that extra yard or 2 or 3 at times against Lyon. But you still got to do something with it. You can score, you can bumble in a few crap goals, Danny Welbeck specials. These were all really good for our part. The header from Gabriel, and we shouldn't forget the lead up to the goal for Gabriel, which I think the goal was around 18 minutes. So this was the first goal. Just before that, the goal was earned from a corner, and the corner was earned from Vieira smashing it into the keeper's nads. Which was like the bravery of keepers spreading themselves for a shot, and then the only problem with spreading yourself for a shot is like right in the nads. So I really felt we'd earned this one. Vieira with the assist was a good header. The second goal, Eddie's goal, comes up the left. I don't know if it was genius or just the ball that was on Albert Sam, she's got me with the pronunciations. Albert Sambi Lokoga whips the ball. He does 2 switches, one for this goal, one for the third goal. Switches it to the other wing, and they're wide open. Now Now it's a good switch. That's partly why they're caught out, because he's deep in our territory. And it's a nice little bit of play. There's something like 11 passes in a row. It's off a throw in from Kieran Tierney down that back corner. Gabriel Magliesh boots it up the pitch to Eddie. And I think one of the things you see in this game is, like, you don't have to rave about it, but there's good hold-up play. That sequence of passes happens because Eddie traps the ball, plays it back. We we keep control. Albert Samuel Lokonga swings it to the other wing, and we're through. And yeah, where the hell is Lyon? Nowhere in sight.
Mm-hmm.
And a training ground, classy finish from Eddie to find the net, passes it into the far corner. Really nice goal. But yeah, of course, caveats up front and at the end. Lyon were not at the races.
No, but I mean, you still have to execute, and we did, and that's great to see. It's good to see the players wanting to play at a high level, which they did. There was one really beautiful counterattack that there was a Nelson flick in the center of the defensive third to play it through and set us off down the left-hand side, and we were just missing the final ball. But by and large, I think, again, if you didn't watch this and you said, what's the biggest thing that happened of note? What happened is Arsenal looked like Arsenal. And I think that was really the critical component to it, because I think there is that question that we all have is, after the World Cup, will we look the same? Now, granted, a lot of these players won't be playing, but it's got to give Mikel some confidence that the players I do have out there look like they're ready to play Arsenal football the way I expect them to. And I look at this lineup and I think, well, presumably Ben White will be back. We might touch on that in a bit. I don't know if Zinchenko will be, but you know, we have Kieran Tierney. He could be starting that West Ham game. Gabriel will be starting the West Ham game. I don't know about Saliba based on how far France goes. So Rob Holding, if Tomiyasu, who said, basically he wants to forget about football for a while, if he isn't ready, he could be starting. Odegaard certainly will be. I think Partey will be back is my guess. I think Xhaka will be back. So it could be Partey, Xhaka, and this lineup for West Ham. And so, Paul, if that's the case, at least seeing these guys look like they're at the races is encouraging, because aside from Partey and Xhaka, who I expect to be back, there's doubts about everybody else that's been to the World Cup or is at the World Cup. So this may not be far off what we're starting with. Yeah,
and the front three in particular.
I should have mentioned goalkeeper probably won't be behind, right? I mean, Matt Turner would probably start against West Ham if England go deep.
Yeah, you would think.
And Ramsdale doesn't want to come back in,
Yeah, certainly the front three. I mean, who knows? But these guys are all. Eddie's going to be odds-on striker.
Hey, when he took a kick on his ankle, did you hear Stan's bank account shuddering? Because he went down with a kick in the first half, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go.
I must be a very positive person, because, in general, when our guys get kicked, I'm always like, they'll be fine.
Yeah, because that's usually the case.
Yeah, sometimes they're not. Luck. But
What's
I'm
wrong
like,
with you?
Nah, it's fine. So no, I didn't worry about it too. I mean, the gods won't be against us. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
No, I think it was quite interesting as well. Vieira off the right with Odegaard in the kind of 8-10 spot just inside him, the lane inside him. And I thought he was a little slow to get started, which is totally understandable. I thought he had an okay-ish, misplaced a couple of passes, looked a little off it for 10 minutes. I think we all did a little bit. But right into it after about the whole team from 10 minutes on was clicking. You don't want to, you might need to keep the tranquilizer drugs there if I start getting way carried away with how great the performance was. But I expected it to be more early pre-season-y, and these guys were all clicking. I'm not saying it was brilliant, but it was good, and it was on it. And
no, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think if you wanted to dismiss this, you'd have to dismiss it more on Lyon looking like they didn't give a damn than on the way we played. But I mean, we had 19 shots in this game.
That can drag you down too, right? Yeah. You can have, if the other team isn't on it, it doesn't mean you're going to be on it. It doesn't mean you're going to string it together. So I thought it was very professional, very, very, very much of a piece with what we've been doing. And I've been getting a lot of mileage out of preseason is the real season. And we have a tendency to say preseason doesn't matter. And maybe it's just coincidence. But we had a great preseason. We took it into the season. Well, if we can have a strong mid-season, keep that, I think we all know it can do you no harm. It can help it. It doesn't last 3, 4, 5 games, but the first game or two coming in at the right speed, it's kind of like joining a highway. You want to come on at the right ramp speed with the right tempo, right level of confidence. if we play 2 or 3 games at this level to get us going, I think the guys, hopefully won't miss much of a beat. But yeah, the front three could be Vieira, Eddie, and Ryan Nelson as our 3 to go and attack West Ham, etc. So it was nice that they found their feet, their relationships, the triangles on both sides were functioning well. It was good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like we're in the perfect shape that we want to be in, but West Ham are going to be without players. I say players. I don't know how many players they'll be without. They'll be without Lucas Paqueta, I assume.
Yeah.
They'll be without Declan Rice, right? So that right there is a help. I don't know if that makes that big. Well, I think that does make that big a difference, actually. It might be 2 of their best players along with Bowen. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. As far as the rest of the match goes, the only player that came on off the bench that really I think is of note for the first team is Marquinhos.
Yeah.
And I'll level with you. I don't think Marquinhos looks ready to me. This is a pretty low-level game, and I thought he was all right. But, when I watch Marquinhos, I see a guy who I think it's still 50-50 whether he makes it for us. I see a guy who understandably has a lot of development. I don't think there's any expectation he'd be ready right away. And I know he had such a great start with that Europa League goal that he scored. He does miss a pretty easy sitter with an open net in this one. No big deal. He flashes it wide of the post. But just in general, when I watch him, there are times he looks so ready, right? He's strong on the ball. Physically, he's ready, but he's just rough around the edges. I'm curious if you have a slightly different take on it.
I do. I mean, we don't have enough data to
well, and this isn't the game to judge, obviously.
To split it. But yeah, he comes on at halftime. I thought he started slowly. Very understandable. Yeah, talking about a guy who hasn't played much. And yeah, he has a couple of moments where you think, the interesting thing was the first time he ever played for us, the takeaway was, wow, he was on it. Everything he did was quality. All his passes connected.
Control. Yep.
Yeah. I think he kind of got up to a better level as this went on. He has one great moment. He cuts inside kind of Robin style, swings it in with his left foot, as he would because he's left-footed, hits the crossbar with a lovely dipping shot. I mean, he did everything right there. It's kind of swings around and it's just dipping under the crossbar, but not quite. It was actually a moment of quality, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what we're looking for. And then we switch him to the left side when the kids go on, so that they can all play in their positions. I thought it was pretty good. I just don't think there's enough data to kind of take it. Whatever your opinion was of him coming into this, it should probably still be about the same.
Yeah, putting too much scrutiny on that player is not necessary. I mean, first of all, he probably won't play much for us this season, but given that we might have a couple of games without Saka and Martinelli coming back, and who knows about ESR, we'll turn to ESR a little bit later. We're going to talk Smith Rowe and Zinchenko and White a little bit, but basically, Paul, I buried the lead, which is the moment of the game, and that's Vieira's goal.
Yeah.
We've seen he has this. I mean, this is the thing. Vieira's got something to his game. I think we're still learning about him, but he's definitely got the ability to score some golazos from outside of the box. What do you think? It's a beautiful strike, obviously.
It is. He takes that extra touch. He's part of the build-up. He takes that extra touch to get it just where he wants it. This is the one where Nelson knocks it back, and I wasn't sure that was the right move there because Nelson's basically kind of through on goal. He might still have to do some work to get around his centre back, but he can see the goal from where he is. They're going to jump on him. His first thought is to create, so he knocks it back to Vieira. Vieira takes a touch, puts it right where he wants it, and the whip on it. I mean, the goalkeeper's got the inside post covered if Vieira doesn't whip it the way he does. I mean, that's a vicious hit. Thing of beauty. He's showing that it's not a one-off. It's not one of those wonder strikes you hit and then you're like, the guy never hits it again. Usually some team against us in the Europa League, some guy hits it from 40 yards out and you're like, Jesus Christ. He must do that every week or once a year. In fact, it's the only time he ever does it in his career. Vieira seems to have this in his locker, and thing of beauty, whips it in. The guy's got magic in his left foot.
Yeah. I mean,
now this is the one with the really nice build-up. The Eddie knocked down the 11 passes. I may have implied it was the previous goal, but this is actually a really nice build-up.
Yeah.
Another Sambi Lokonga switch. I don't want to put too much onto Sambi Lokonga. Like, you could see the things about Sambi Lokonga that you want more of, but on the ball, he has some quality in his boots, and that was the good side of his game. Two good switches that set up two good goals. Yeah,
totally agree. And I'm willing to put something into this game, but the problem I have with evaluating Sambi ultimately is Sambi Lokonga is a player I have absolutely no doubt when there's more space and there's more time, the guy's going to look good. The question is, can he do it at tempo? Can he do it in tighter spaces? And there were just no tight spaces really in this game. So we'll have to see. Let's before we get off this game, because I do want to talk about Smith Rowe and Zinchenko and some injury updates and things like that. But before we do that, anything from any of the kids you want to raise? I mean, like, okay, that's fair. I do just want to make sure that we call out the worst penalty ever taken and the penalty shootout. You could call it a Panenka, but just because you chip a ball to the goalkeeper doesn't make it a Panenka. I mean, it was, and to be fair, Karl Hein, I mean, penalty specialist, I guess, but this ball is gently chipped into his loving arms to end the penalty shootout 2-1 to the Arsenal. Or was it 2-0? No, 2-1 to the Arsenal. Call out a couple of the kids' contributions. I have to admit that's the part of the game where I struggle. First of all, I wasn't sure who anybody was on the pitch, so that was a problem. Anything that jumps out at you from that period of the game? And I guess, look, there are some kids that played that I've never heard of, but we had players like Cozier Dewberry, Lino Sousa, Matt Smith, Nwaneri, some players that I am familiar with that, you know, we might be seeing in an Arsenal team in the not too distant future. So who stood out and why?
So like that, let's start with that penalty, the Panenka. Have you ever pictured, because they didn't do Panenkas when I was a kid, have you ever pictured that for some reason you have to take a penalty against a pro keeper and you're like, well, I don't actually generate the kind of power that's going to beat him to either post. Maybe I could Panenka him. And like, you know that a pro keeper is going to be like, I'm going to wait to see what this guy does with the ball. And you Panenka him and he just stands there and catches it in his arms. This is exactly what I pictured would happen if I tried to Panenka a pro. The guy, Karl Hein, just stands there. Everybody's embarrassed. The guy taking the penalty basically apologizes with a hand wave. Karl Hein doesn't want to make too much fuss of it. Everybody's just like, okay, let's go home now. Talking about the kids, Karl Hein didn't get much of a workout, but what he did do, coming claiming crosses, his distribution, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but it was good. He was clipping balls out to the right.
Was great. Yeah,
he's our third choice keeper, so why go on too much about it? He might end up playing cup games and stuff going forward for us. I thought we've seen a lot of keepers come to Arsenal, come and go through the academy, and they're all kind of the next big
They're all playing at the World Cup.
Yeah. But they don't quite make, like this guy, I'm like, I don't know. He might be one of the ones that make it through. I mean, we've had ones that made it through into the first team or backup keepers. The names we will know. But yeah, this guy looked like he could be he just had the right vibes about him. He didn't have to do too much, but he didn't make me nervous. He looked like he was good at the goalkeeping. It was good. From the kids, well, I think my takeaway was they all looked good. They're used to playing against each other, playing with each other. They were all in their positions. You mentioned Sousa. There's Rowe Walters, who was on tour with us. None of them, lots of them did little things that were good. They took about 5 or 10 minutes to settle, but they actually took it to Lyon, I think, in terms of possession, playing the ball around. And that was, Lyon had a couple of kids, but they also had quite a few of their more senior players. They had Ren Adelaide, I think, came on. And, a fairly a youngish side, but a fairly senior side. And I just thought the play, it was more the interplay between the players. Lewis Scalia was really good. Cozier Duberine, and Nwaneri, Walters, Sousa.
What do you make of Nwaneri? I mean, obviously, what is he, 15? Like, there's a lot of... Maybe Google isn't allowed to put his name on the thing because he's too young. He's not an adult or whatever. Like,
I'll tell you, he didn't look 15 compared to the guys who were 18, 19. I think physically he's pretty good. He obviously had a couple of chances to take a pop and did. He's not going to miss out his chances. I thought the overall level of the pressing as well. I mean, they had the game, and Nwaneri was part of that. Him and I think Serjan really helped with the tempo in the middle. Like, you can't get too far away. I think too far ahead on your ski tips, whatever the saying is, too far
over
forward.
Your ski tips. You leave that to me, buddy.
I'll leave that to you. I'm more of a snowboarder.
Hey, I've literally got the mug, and it's on here, over my ski tips.
Oh yeah,
there it is.
You never sent me one of those, Elliot.
Well,
the only way I get to read that mug is when you hold it up to the screen for me.
The way God intended, please.
So like, they were all like pretty good. That was the takeaway. They all did good. They knew each other. They knew the game. They kind of took it to Lyon with possession. They got done a couple of times against the big fellas from Lyon. I thought Nwaneri looked really good because he didn't look 15. He looked like the rest of these guys who are 18, 19, 20. I think all of these guys are going to make it, Elliot. I think they're all going to make the first team squad. And they may
all be superstars,
starters. Yeah. Well, superstars, that's a little early for me.
Probably, though.
Strangely, they all looked the part. I think it was fun that they got to play together for 30 minutes here. It wasn't like we brought them into a mix of the adults and it was all getting a bit funky. We had two very different teams, the seniors and the kids knew each other and found each other, along with Marquinhos, who'd switched to the left wing. Yeah, they were all good. Yeah.
I just want to be clear, right? Like, if you're sitting here right now saying, wow, you've already devoted a half hour to this, like, that's impressive. Well done, guys. Like, I paid 10 British pounds for this. So, like, yeah, I'm going to devote a half hour to it to feel like
I watched it twice.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
You got your money's worth. Although I suspect you probably watched it on some dodgy stream. I paid for it. All right. Well, look, Arsenal are running a business. They're not just running a business on the pitch. They're running a business online. They have a digital business, and they have to fund that digital business. But if you want a digital business that you want to fund, cha-ching, baby, you need Shopify. That's right. Shopify is the e-commerce platform, all-in-one commerce platform, not just e-commerce, to start, run, and grow your business. You have a physical store, they can give you a point-of-sale system there. You want to run a business without worrying about how to accept payments or how to deal with tax or how to deal with shipping. It does all that for you. You can literally drag and drop together a professional-looking website that lets you sell not just on your website, but on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, you name it. So, if you bake cookies and you want to sell them, or you're into whittling and you want to sell your, what is that called when you do things with wood? There's a word for that. When you do the wood everybody's screaming it into their recording devices.
We were good with whittling. What are you doing?
Yeah, but there's another thing. There's another thing you can do with wood. I don't know. I got a lot of reasons to move on now. Let me just read the copy. Okay, everybody be quiet while I read the copy, and we're all going to be okay. All right. There's 24/7 support, free on-demand business courses. Shopify is your team every step of the way. Okay. You're going to be able to do everything basically. Okay. That's the key. You're going to it fields all the sales channels. I mentioned that. You can customize your online store. I think I mentioned that. I'm really in my head now. When you're ready to take our winning idea to the world, team up with Shopify, the commerce platform powering millions of businesses down the street and around the globe. Try out Shopify for free today and start selling anywhere. This is possibility. Powered by Shopify. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/ArsenalVision. All lowercase. No idea why. Just do what they say. Just do what the advertising lords tell us to do, please. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision to start selling online today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. And once you've got your business up and running, let's face it, the most important thing you can do next is have your body be healthy. And the way you can have your body be healthy is by using AG1, because AG1 is 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens 1 scoop in water. Tastes good. I like it, actually. I really do like it. Take it every morning. Got rid of all the gummies and the sugary treats masquerading as vitamins that you just pee out, because that's really what happens with most of this stuff. This is whole food sourced. So, I think that's really important. I consume it because it helped me with gut health, helps me with energy. Those are things that I was looking for. I already rely on coffee quite a bit. So this was a nice step in the right direction. But for you, it's lifestyle friendly. So if you're doing keto, paleo, vegan, daily free, or gluten-free, it works. Less than a gram of sugar. It costs less than the price of an expensive cup of coffee a day and has over 7,000 5-star reviews. The stuff just works. It's good for your body. Take it, clear out the cabinet full of junk, because that's what the rest of the stuff is. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit, get this, athleticgreens.com/vision. And they don't demand what capitalization you use. So very easy. athleticgreens.com/vision. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/vision to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Paul! Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay. We have Gabriel Jesus out.
Mm-hmm.
That's heartbreaking and unfortunate, unexpected. What's maybe a little more expected is that we have Smith Rowe and Zinchenko out. I want to touch on this briefly. I got a little panicky on Twitter, and Tim, as he does, straightened me out, and then everybody else, as Twitter does, straightened me out by piling onto me. And I deserved it. Let's be honest, I deserved it. But, the latest update from Mikel on Smith Rowe just worried me. Now, a lot of people pointed out that actually the timetable for this was back to training in December. And we're in December and he's back to training. It's that Mikel made some comment like he felt discomfort. And I just feel like the mood music around this, based on nothing, I want to be clear. I know this is based on nothing. This is just me saying words, which is the definition of a podcast. But I feel like the mood music has that little bit of worry in the way he said it. And, we felt a little discomfort, but, it's normal. He's in the process. Smith Rowe is a player that I think can be massively important for us. He has shown that he's someone who, first of all, he has the ability to come in off the bench and still be incredibly influential. Not every player can do that. He can play the Xhaka role, I think. He can play false 9. We've seen Mikel deploy him that way. He can play left or he can play right, but I think better left. But he adds a lot that we could definitely use. But the guy just has never demonstrated that he can stay totally fit. He was out for a long stretch during his Huddersfield loan. He was out the whole start of that season when he came in on Boxing Day, which I guess is 2 seasons ago now. He missed a big chunk of last season, big chunk of this season. So what's your take on the latest updates on the Smith Rowe injury? And while I accept that it is within the time frame that we were given, do you want to just calm me down, be in whiskers on the mood music around his injury? Because we could desperately use him. We could desperately use this player.
I'm with Tim on this one, and I didn't see anything in the comments from him, and maybe it's a question of interpretation.
So it's not in the text. So I'll admit the text doesn't sound ominous, but when you watch it,
because he says,
there was some,
here's his words as I read them. Emile has returned to training, and he's in that process after we rehab, after a period where he had some real discomfort. Well, he's had an operation. I don't think he's saying he's had some new discomfort or some unexpected discomfort.
Right, that's how the text reads. But when you watched it, it came across more like he's back. He's back in training, but he had some discomfort. I think there's a but that they left out of the text or something, because it was more like but he had some discomfort, and then, we're dealing with that kind of thing. It had a bit of a setbacky vibe, but I realized when I read it back, I don't see it in the text. So maybe I imagine this. Maybe I read in a little more than was in there.
And that is the problem. Because we don't know behind the scenes. Is everything going exactly to plan? We don't know. Could be, might not be. The vibe I took from it was, you're already asking me about Smith Rowe, but he's going to need his own time scale, if you know what I mean. Not a longer time scale, just not a one based on, we need Smith Rowe against West Ham, or
so we should rush him back. Yeah,
there's only one way to do it. And there's a pressure on players when the media, the pundits, people like you and I,
we're the worst.
Okay, yeah. like the buzz, the fans, and it's all when Smith Rowe coming, and like it starts putting the pressure on the player, and like there just has to be a more natural, in this particular case, time. This is critical for his career and his career at Arsenal. This is the big one, unlike all the other ones. Like they've gone and done the operation that fixes the thing that's been a recurring problem, and our short-term challenges are not important is the way to look at Smith Rowe. And so I think that's the times, that's the caveating. That's why Arteta's saying, whoa, back off here. At least that's my interpretation based only on the text. I think he's saying, treat this one differently. We got a whole different thing going on here. This isn't in the mix of, how's this guy's recovery and injury thing coming back from now?
Yeah.
That's my projection. As you have your worrying, I have my, let's couch this in the way that I want it to be. This is how I want it. This is what I want it to mean.
Yeah. And again, like just the words when he's like, Emile's been returned to training and is in that process after a period and is in that process after a period with real discomfort. So we're giving him some time. And it was the like, after a period of real discomfort, so we're giving him some time, made it sound to me almost like, he hadn't been feeling right, so we're just giving him a little extra time. It struck me like
everything's going great.
Yes. And I heard one of the legs is not fully connected to the body, but we're still
we reattached. We think it's on good, but we're not sure.
Yeah. So, by the way, from that press conference, not a lot of interesting other stuff on whether his squad was short. He said, we have a great squad. Unfortunately, we have injuries. We have a lot of players. We have a lot of academy players. We have a lot of players who can give us performances. Like there wasn't a lot in it to answer any other questions. So if you've missed his press conference, you didn't really miss much on anything else. No time scale on the Jesus injury, transfer plans. It just says, no, it affects who we are as a team. We'll look at what we have and try to make the right decisions. He asked if Martinelli could play up top. He's like, we got a lot of players who can do a lot of things. There are things we can try. Like there was literally nothing there. So you didn't get much. So
we found
there's
something
that
to worry about.
Well, yeah, of course. But then there's the next one, which is Zinchenko. And like, to be clear,
weird.
Zinchenko had injury worries before we signed him. He had a knee injury at City and he was in and out before that. But like, he was never the starter, so maybe it didn't resonate as much. When you have a backup player who's injured, sometimes, like if I told you prior to yesterday that Cedric had a 3-month injury ongoing, you'd be like, oh, didn't know. You know what I mean? Because you don't need him. You haven't been using him. So I think there was a little of that with Zinchenko. But where are you on Zinchenko? Because one of the things I think we'll lose with Jesus out is I think we'll lose access to Martinelli in the left wing a bit because I think Jesus had really struck up a rapport there. Not that Nketiah can't do it, but I think we can get some of that back and get some of the control back because Jesus, if he's better than Nketiah at something, he really is strong at linking up and, dropping into midfield. That's an elite skill of his. Zinchenko can give some of that back because he's so good in that half space, right? At pushing us up and giving us possession in the left half space in a way that even though I love Tierney, I don't think Tierney is as good. So I think Zinchenko can balance some of the stuff we lose without Jesus. But is Zinchenko in that cluster for you, Paul, in that zone of you just have to expect him to play when he's available, but you can't really count on him being available. You can't plan around it.
Yeah. Zinchenko likes a niggle, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have come to a point where I'm just for the foreseeable expecting this is the Zinchenko we have this season. There's no good reason why he's getting these niggles, but he just seems to be a thing with him. Emotionally, I gotta not be on the hook up and down like the Assyrian Empire. With Zinchenko's niggles, I mean, I think it's just going to be a thing. Doesn't seem to be. I think it's related to his calf. I think was the word I like.
And he's been training. He just didn't. He wasn't in the lineup.
He's had the calf thing for a while.
Yeah,
and like the calf, like those. I've had calf strains and stuff. Like you have the different grades. There's no huge issue, but they do tend to be a recurring thing. It's an area of scarring, and I'm sure they're working on it and blah, blah, blah. But it's absolutely the kind of thing that can recur that some people get on a recurring basis. He seems to be one of these people. And, Tierney's doing his best to adapt to that inverted position. He's working at it manfully, but it just doesn't play to his strengths, even if he does okay. I mean, he's a very vertical player. He's pretty one-footed. And it's just not the same without him. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic as the season goes on. Will we see a lot of Tommy getting switched to the left side, and how does the impact on how Tierney feels about his role in all of this? And is Zinchenko back? And then suddenly he's in every time he's back. It's going to be a quirky area of the pitch where three different guys can and will be playing, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Transfermarkt, if you trust their injury history stuff they post, he's missed over 100 days with injuries in the each of the last 2 years. Over 100 days out in 2021, or maybe I'm reading this wrong. I mean, this thing is hard to read, so I could be off.
I remember seeing he had lots of injuries, and that was in a time when, he didn't. It wasn't like they were playing all the time, so they could have rested him. They had plenty of options. They had Cancelo, Walker. They were.
I do want to be fair. Last year he had a 30-day coronavirus absence and a 12-day quarantine absence, and those, you can't really rack that up to a knock. I do like the unknown injury, 27 days. That's always a good one. But he's already with the calf and the knee. He's already at 54 days that he's been out with this, missed 12 games. So, we just have to see. And again, players can just get over this stuff and be done with it and be fit. It's the issue of relying on them. I think about Robin van Persie. Robin van Persie was a lovely, lovely player, just a wonderful player. I think we would have been better in the early 2010s if we never had him. You say, how's that possible? He was extraordinary. He had one of the best seasons as a striker ever in Arsenal history. He did. But the couple of seasons where we depended on him and he missed half a season meant we couldn't achieve our goals. I think when you start to have too many influential players in your team that you just can't trust to start games, you can't plan. Because you can't buy a starter to play when your starter's injured. But by the same token, you can't play half your season with a backup. We saw it with Tierney, right? We've seen it. When you play half your season with a backup, your season's not as good. But you can't go spend $70 million on a guy and say you're going to split time with the starter unless you're Manchester City. So having injury-prone players makes it very hard to build a squad because you're either playing half a season with a backup or you're wasting resources having two sensational players for one position, which isn't necessarily the best deployment of resources. So I'm not saying we're there yet, but I certainly think, and with Smith Rowe, it's less of an issue, I think, because Smith Rowe becomes a great option behind Martinelli or behind Saka or behind Jesus and Nketiah and behind Xhaka. But Zinchenko gives us a lot of capabilities to play the way we want that our other fullbacks don't, as much as we love Tierney. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Tierney isn't always available. So that's one we need to get through. I mean, do you agree with my general proposal, though, that Zinchenko can help us add back some stuff that maybe we would lose in the absence of Jesus and therefore becomes a more meaningful part of what we need to have going into January?
For sure. The one thing I'd add, though, if I was to criticize Eddie's game in this mid-season warm-up, it wouldn't be his hold-up. I thought he dropped in, connected the play, did that. He's not going to be quite Jesus because nobody is, but I thought that was actually good. There were lots of instances of him dropping in, adding an extra man. He was following the blueprint. He was doing the stuff. It was, as far as I could see, working. If I were to criticize him, his pressing and our pressing, Lyon did us a favor in that everything they did was playing out from the back, which meant we got to practice our pressing patterns. I think Eddie did it very well. You could see him doing the same moves, the same kind of jump to cut off the pass to the center back over to the side of the box. But I don't get this about players. He didn't have the intensity that you see with Jesus and Martinelli, where he closes the guy down, but then he slows as he gets to him. I don't get this. I don't get this in players. It's the one thing you have control over, how intense you are. You can just go for it. And it is a mid-season game, and maybe that's not where they're at. But I thought his pressing was good. I thought his hold-up play was good. I thought the patterns, he was he was doing a very, very passable imitation of Gabriel Jesus. Just more intensity, dude. Lead with the intensity, because that's the other thing. Jesus, like, there's a mental trigger with Jesus, which is, oh shit, we're going. Whereas with Eddie, he's such a smooth kind of shark in the water kind of presser. They know they're going because they've seen the pattern, not because, oh shit, Eddie's going. But I thought his hold-up play was good. I absolutely see that if adding Zinchenko in there is going to probably make up the delta that we somewhat will lack, because Jesus is elite and Eddie at best is maybe very good.
Yeah. Well, final thing for this episode. There will be a World Cup daily later, by the way. Ben White is not in Dubai. He returned from the World Cup and the England camp due to personal reasons, and we're not going to pry into that, of course. That doesn't stop people from prying into it. And there's been a report that came out that said, oh, he had a bust up with Steve Holland and he wasn't getting on with his teammates. And like, the reaction online is exactly what you'd expect. The Arsenal fans have rushed to his defense and crucifying this journalist for writing that. And I get it. Like, no one else is reporting it. I doubt it's true. I can't prove it isn't true. But I think in general, just like, my attitude towards any of this is, who cares? Like, Benjamin White is going to play great football for Arsenal. And if it didn't work out in England, for whatever reason, he wasn't fit, there was a personal issue with his family, he got into a bust-up, even if every word of that is true, he didn't get on with his teammates and he had a bust-up with Steve Holland, like, I couldn't care less, Paul. I just couldn't care less. Mikel Arteta does not suffer fools lightly. Mikel Arteta does not suffer players who aren't focused, who aren't committed, who aren't prepared. So whether that story is absolute nonsense, which it might be, or has even a grain of truth, I don't care. So, like, I guess my thing on Benjamin White is, I expect Benjamin White is going to be ready to play football for Arsenal when the football returns, and I expect he's going to play brilliantly because that's what he does for us. And Mikel Arteta knows the player. Mikel Arteta trusts the player. So maybe the right response to any of this England nonsense with Ben White is like, hey, if it means no more England for Ben White, like, it's probably Arsenal's benefit, as long as Ben doesn't care, and he certainly doesn't seem to care about football. So I don't know if he cares about an England call-up that much. Sack has come to his defense and, been supportive of him in the comments. So I don't want to pry into the reasons. I don't want to get into what his personal reasons are, because it's personal. But what I did just want to touch on quickly is, do you sort of follow suit in my appraisal that, like, this doesn't matter. He's going to come back and play great football for us. And I think we should all just rest easy in that knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a them problem. That's the England national team. I'm going to assume that the story is probably bollocks. If there was something to it, well, it's a whole different scenario. He's just one of the squad out there. He's not getting to play much of a role. You could understand why somebody mightn't be quite as engaged. He's certainly not as settled in. He's not as whatever. Seemed to have plenty of friends out there from what I saw. One of them was Jude Bellingham. So if he can maintain that friendship,
that's all that matters, frankly.
That's all that matters.
Maybe he was sent home so that he could meet with Jude Bellingham's agent to help negotiate the transfer.
Yeah. He's helping him look for houses. Who knows what it is? So we'll know more about the story at some stage in the future. It's one of those you can't really talk about. I'm going with there was very likely what they said. He has got some personal stuff he doesn't want to talk about, so be it. But yeah, I 100% agree. Like, his situation at Arsenal, where he is known, loved, central to our plans, not sitting on the bench, game in, game out, as kind of an afterthought to join the squad. Like, it's even in the worst reading of this, it's totally different situation, and England's problem. It's not an Arsenal problem where he is known, loved. We went through an obstacle course to get him because he's a key figure in our dressing room. And so, that's a them problem. If there's a problem, there's probably not a problem.
Yep, I agree with that. And I think with that, we should leave it there. We got a World Cup daily coming later, as I said, and there'll be more mid-preseason friendlies. I mean, you have to realize something. Arsenal doesn't always delight everybody, but I feel like Arsenal is focused specifically on delighting Paul, who only cares about preseason, and he gets 2 preseasons in the same season. It's Christmas come early. Paul's on Twitter. Pause my pants. Thanks, pause.
Woohoo! Mid-season is the real season.
Mid-preseason is the real mid-season. My name is Elliot Smith. You can follow me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. West Ham 0.